Affinity Designer version 2.1 comes with some new features. Live filter layers, only 2 of them. To access them, go over here. Instead of using the designer persona, go to the pixel persona. So click there. Once you're in there, you've got these layers. You could have 15, 20 layers, text, images, all those sort of things. But I'm just going to go with 2 of these. And you can go to layer and new live filter layer, and you've got perspective and mesh warp. Now these have been in photo for a while, since version 2. You can select mesh warp. I could go with perspective as well, but I'm just going to go with mesh warp. And you can see straight away you get this warp here. Now if you saw the rest of the image, you would see all the way around. But I'm just going to distort it. So I'm going to distort. In this case, both those layers are manipulated. Anything below that mesh warp is going to be distorted. And you can, of course, do all kinds of things. Please check out my videos on the mesh warp. You can double click and add additional nodes. Double click there again and add more. And you can distort it in all kinds of ways. Now the designs below, those rectangles, and it could be text, etc. That's live. Still live, so you can still change those later if you want. You don't have to keep it as is. They're not modified. It's just on top. Click done. At this point, you can now, if you want, just go up here and go back to designer persona. And you can still see this here. Now you can go here to the rectangle. So the rectangle, you can select that one or that one. And you can see when you select that one, you can see it's now positioned there. It looks like there, but it's actually here. And you can move it, you can reposition it. You can also rotate it. And as you do that, you see what happens. It distorts in very unusual ways. And you can move it back there, and you can go to this one. So select that one. It's easier, I think, to actually select via the layers panel than actually try and select the shape, because it might be a completely different position. And you can move it around again. You can rotate it, resize it. So you can decide, no, let's make that smaller, and so on. And you can, of course, create additional ones. It's part of a group, of a warp mesh group. So here I can select that. I can right click and I can duplicate. And I can then, let's just select that one. I can move that and so on. You can position that one there, position that one there, and so on. You can still work with them. You can also change the fill. So you can decide, oh, let's just go for the gradient tool, and I can then manipulate it. You can see then that change. Now, once you've done that, you can, of course, at any point get rid of the mesh warp. You think, oh, I don't want it now. I can just deselect it. Or I can drag these out of the mesh warp. So I can just simply select that and drag it above, and now you've just got the mesh warp there, and you can delete it. It's just a layer that you can delete. So just delete, and it's gone. Now you can also apply it to an actual shape or image itself, just that one shape. So with this selected, and you don't have to select here, you can select it in the pixel persona. But I'm just going to go up here again and click pixel persona. And I can click here and use the move tool, move it around, reposition it. But also what I can do, I can go to layer and new live filter layer, and I can go down here to mesh warp. So mesh warp again I could use perspective, but you can see now the box is around just that one shape. And you can distort that shape now. You can distort it in all kinds, exactly the same ways as before. But this time you can see it's just connected to that rectangle or type or whatever. And you can distort it and drag it around. You can do something like that. And again, click done. And you can do the same on the other one. So let's select that one. Go to here, layer, new live filter layer, whoops, layer, new live filter layer. Might even be able to select it, mesh warp. And you can see you can distort it. You can also use source. Source is an unusual one because you can manipulate it and nothing changes. It's a bit odd. So if you just go over here, drag, just drag, but it does mean you can create some very unusual shapes simply by just distorting this and then clicking done, and then you get some very odd results. Now, sometimes I prefer the other way, but you can see you can do it. And you can then, at any point, just expand this out, go to that mesh warp and say, oh, you know what, I don't want to see it. Just click there and it's gone. Or click there again and it's back again. At any point, you can always just double click. And you can then just distort it again. Just tweak it, change it in all kinds of different ways. And then click done again. At that point, I can go back to the designer. So designer persona, we're still in there. You've got all these settings still. You've got all these access. Now, hopefully, maybe in version 2.2, who knows, 2. Whatever, maybe there will be more live filter layers. I would love to see this. The thing is that's odd is that you can, if you want, do exactly all this functionality here with the mesh warps, with all the various things. If you go to File and Edit in Photo, you can go Edit in Photo, and then you can use all the other live filter layers, and they all come back exactly the same as this. Another thing you might be thinking, why do we have that when we can go down here and we got this, the warp option here. There's obviously now a couple of warps in this. So you can go down here and click here and say, just go for mesh, and you can see this, and you can distort it, but you'll notice it's slightly different result. Now, you might prefer this option, but the distortion is definitely different. You can see the distortion there. It's very different from the very clean distortion that you're getting from this warp. So it is different. There is a reason for it. So once you've done that, of course, you can then just go back there. You've got your distortion, and you can, of course, continue to modify that at a later time if you wish. It's part of a warp group. This is a slightly different one. You can see it's called mesh warp. This one's warp group. Hope you found this tutorial of interest. Any questions, please let me know in the comments below. Always great to hear from you. Thank you much.